We're going to do this a little later, but let's get right to it because you brought it up, Jay, and that is A-OK. Jason, you wrote an article yesterday in The Athletic. If you haven't read it, go check it out. Subscribe. It's a very, very good deal. Jason got me the hookup. It's a very, very good deal. About the Browns waiting this long to make the move and why. And even after a win, Jason kind of put them to the fire, put their feet to the fire. And Jason, you could explain the article, but I guess the big question is, why did they wait so long to make this change at quarterback?
I think they're trying to get a return on their investment. I think it's pretty obvious, but it was evident. It was evident by the end of September it was broken. It was not going to work. So you had a choice to make at the end of September. You could keep driving off this cliff and trying to get something out of your money, or you could look at the other 52 guys in that locker room and say, we're committed to you guys. Let's try and salvage this season. It didn't have to go as – do you realize they didn't have their first lead in the month of October until that field goal to make it 3-0 at the start of the game? That was their first lead in the entire month of October. It didn't have to be that way. They chose to do it that way. And yes, I understand. You want to give Deshaun every opportunity to make this work. I totally get it. That's why Jay and I disagreed. I sat here adamantly and said, you can't bring Joe Flacco back. You can't do it. It will divide the locker room. You have to put all of your resources into Deshaun. And although I disagreed with the decision to fire AVP, I understood the concept behind it of trying to make Deshaun more comfortable, trying to fit the offense around him. I totally got it. When you got through all of training camp, all of preseason, the entire month of September, and it was a disaster, and he was the worst quarterback in the history of these metrics, after a month against the easy teams in the easy part of the schedule, what more evidence did you need that he was broken and it wasn't going to work? And you kept doing it anyway, and you kept doing it anyway, and it cost you a season of Myles Garrett's prime, and it cost you another season of Joel Bitonio's prime, and all these other guys, whoever else you want to throw out there, it cost another season off their primes. And for what? To try and prove a point on the money that you already knew was dead. It's dead. Figure it out and move on. It's going to hurt. You know it's going to hurt. But it's better than the alternative of to keep trying to push this boulder up this hill that you knew was just going to keep rolling over top of you.
There's part of me that says, well, Jason, you're not winning a Super Bowl with Jameis Winston either, so what's the difference? But when you make the playoffs and had Jameis play – now, we don't know how Jameis is going to play the rest of the year. He may have played crappy the rest of the year. I'm
not sure Jameis plays the rest of the year, but that's an entirely
whatever.
Different conversation.
Okay, but
if he plays like this, he will.
If he plays like,
let's say they get this kind of quarterback play, this level of quarterback play the rest of the season. Well, they'll end up winning 6 games or 7 games. They'll not make the playoffs. And had they started Jameis a month ago, maybe they would have won 9. Maybe they would have won 10. I will never know. But and we've spent a lot of time arguing like, who's to blame? Was this Kevin's decision? Was it Jimmy's decision? Ultimately, from our perspective, it doesn't really matter. I know it does matter, but it doesn't matter in terms of this. It was an organizational failure. So whoever's to blame specifically in the moment doesn't really matter. It was
you don't want to make a change at that position, or do you want to keep empowering
I would. If I knew that Paul DePodesta or Andrew Berry or even Kevin Stefanski, who I do not want to fire most of all, if I knew it was all on them, yes, I would consider it. Now, to be fair, I think most people around the league thought Deshaun Watson was going to be great. And he's just whatever. He's mentally screwed up, whatever it may be. Who knows. But the point is that it was just so mishandled to not make this quarterback switch. It was such an obvious decision. Because Jameis Winston is a competent NFL quarterback, and as you said, Deshaun Watson is the worst quarterback in football. It's not even debatable. And that just showed you. It showed you that even with mistakes that Jameis Winston made, even with injuries, even with trading away their best wide receiver, they looked like a good football team against a team that had been playing great football. They just destroyed the Buccaneers last week. The Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield. Nobody's been a bigger supporter of Baker than me.
Who, by the way, took a step back without his 2 best receivers yesterday.
Now, listen.
Still played okay, but
Baker has thrown 7 picks in his last 10 quarters. That's hideous. But
it's awful.
I'm still going to say, I actually thought he played pretty well yesterday.
Their defense has given up 16 touchdown passes
stinks.
in 4 weeks.
It's awful, and Baker's a decent quarterback. Baker is what Jameis was. I was actually saying this to Jason before the show. I don't want to go too far off. Baker is what Jameis was.
Yeah.
A lot of touchdowns.
A lot of picks.
A lot of picks.
Yeah.
you win 8-9 games, you maybe make the playoffs, but ultimately it's going to cost you against a good team the picks, and that would be the same thing with Jameis. But it was a dereliction of duty by the entire organization to not play. You saw how inspired the players were playing with Jameis. You talked about the energy, whatever it is, whatever that intangible might be.
Yeah.
These guys had energy when they played with Flacco. They had no energy with Watson, and now they have energy again with Winston.
It's pretty obvious.
I look at it like this. I'm just a realist. When they gave him that bag of money, they was going to pay him hell or high water. That's just what it was going to be.
Well, they had to. It's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed.
You mean play him?
They're going to play him.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
they were going to play him this year regardless.
Yeah.
What we got, it's the sinuses.
That must be what's going on.
Yeah, the sinuses.
Struggling with the L's today.
The L's.
Taking the L's.
The L's, man. But I will say that they were going to play him, and guess what? You got lucky. You lucked up. Yeah. And I don't want to say it's lucky or that I'm benefiting from someone else's injury. But Deshaun Watson, that chess piece got taken off the board. And when that chess piece got taken off the board, that's the way sports works. Sometimes you're playing great, and it could be a 2016 or 14 version where Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love get hurt. Those pieces get taken off the board, and you know what it is. Sometimes they get taken off the board, and it helps you out a little bit in terms of you get a chance to see some other people play. I think of it like this. Instead of me thinking about, okay, yes, it's the worst trade, it's up there. I mean, it's hard to argue any of that, right? But I'll look at what's the recourse. You go back and look at what the 49ers did. They had Jimmy Garoppolo. When they went and got Trey Lance in 2021, they traded a first-round pick in 2021, first-round pick in 2022, a third-round pick in 2022, and another first-round pick in 2023. 3 firsts and 1 third. And it was Trey Lance. They were in a position to win. They were positioned to do it right now. Just think about what they could have done with those picks added to what they already had the roster.
But they didn't double down and pay crazy money.
But what they did was Kyle Shanahan said, you know what? We can either pout about this or cry about it, or we can cut bait today, figure that out, and I'll go ahead and save the franchise by identifying the true quarterback. All of this happens, to me, all of this happens where we are today with Deshaun Watson and Baker Mayfield. All of this happens when you miss. If you miss on a quarterback, all hell is going to break loose.
And they didn't just miss. They missed
in
historic
and they
fashion.
missed twice.
And look at Carolina, right? That trade to get Bryce, they traded away, and you
missed.
They screwed up.
You missed.
The exception is if you're so good on the fringes, as you like to say, and you're hitting with everything else, you can be like the San Francisco 49ers and miss historically on Trey Lance, and then luck up or skill up, whatever you want to call it.
That's Brock Purdy.
But they fell into Brock Purdy, and all of a sudden, all was forgotten with Trey Lance.
And and I give the 49ers credit. They could have went back a lot of times on Brock Purdy, right? But you know what they did? They embraced it. They said, no, this 6th-round dude, we're going to play him.
I saw Kyle Shanahan say he was like in a frustrated moment. He told the front office and ownership early, Brock Purdy's the best quarterback we have. That was early.
Really?
When Trey was still on the.
And they had Jimmy at the time.
They were trying to make Trey work, and Kyle was like, Purdy's the best quarterback. And he said that's probably not the thing to say to ownership and to the front office after they just invested all of this into Trey Lance, but it was immediate to him right away.
And he probably had a lot of say in getting. I mean, he had to.
I would imagine.
John and Trey have John and Kyle have a close working relationship. They are
partnership.
They're a partnership, and it works. But it's fascinating to me that he would have been able to say early on, because remember, not only Trey Lance failed, Jimmy Garoppolo failed.
Right.
And he was the break glass in case of emergency guy.
And think about it.
And he came in and not only put out the fire, but he rebuilt the entire building.
So this is the foresight I give him credit for. Not only did he have the foresight to say Brock Purdy, think about if we had a quarterback that was in a Super Bowl but lost. we ain't moving on that person
No.
ever. What are you talking about? That kid whoever it is going to be here forever. Not only did Jimmy Garoppolo go, he was close to winning the game against the Chiefs.
Yep.
They said, you know what? We getting Jimmy Garoppolo out of here.
They did.
Trey Lance, we gave up the whole farm for him. We get him out of there, and we go with Brock Purdy.
Well, I mean, the Rams.
That's wild.
The Rams
Same
did the
thing.
same with
Yep.
Goff.
That is wild.
And Goff's better than Garoppolo. Way better than Garoppolo.
That's crazy.
Well, you can go back to the 49ers even more with Colin Kaepernick. He came within a whisker of winning a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now, there were some other circumstances at play there, but
The other circumstance was he got blackballed from the league.
exactly. if you're going to miss
You gotta-
as historically and
Yeah.
as epically as the Browns miss, you better be good on the fringes in the other areas. And when you look at their drafts, they haven't been.
Now hold
They
on.
haven't.
Now hold on. I will say this, Mikey McNuggets, do your victory lap because
Mikey McNuggets is not getting a victory lap for Cedric Tillman
Yeah,
because he's going to be wrong about Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman
What was your prediction?
2 weeks in a row.
What was your prediction about Cedric Tillman, Mikey McNuggets, that we laughed at you
Hey,
for?
look,
I said
Jason
he
Lloyd's
finished-
face. He rolling. He over here. He almost had a seizure.
Go
I
ahead.
said he'd finish second on the team in receiving yards, which he's not there yet.
He ain't
And
there.
when G. Bush
No.
on the postgame show told me to take a victory lap, I said, I'm not taking a victory lap. I'm just at least calling the city to see which streets will be available.
No, there's no victory lap.
If at the end of the
Hey, get
season,
your ducks out.
No.
But, like, look, somebody has to catch passes. Someone
No,
has to
nobody
be
has to
number
catch
2.
passes.
Hey.
No.
Yeah, someone has to catch passes,
No,
Bull.
it's
Oh, you're
not
going to
the
go
NBA.
0 for 24?
No, my point is you could have – there are teams that have nobody with 500 yards or nobody with 600
Hey, when
yards.
he caught that slant pass,
Yeah,
he was moving at a speed
Let me tell
I've
you
never
something.
seen him
Here's
move
why
before.
Mike gets no victory lap, because he's going to be wrong, because Cedric Tillman is going to lead this team.
Oh!
Yeah, no, that's
What
even
a
easier.
heel
But-
change.
But, okay, who else is? Amari's gone.
But that,
You funny
No,
guy.
he's
you.
a guy.
I'm not going to downplay what I've seen from Cedric Tillman the last 2 weeks, because
Can't. Yeah, no, it's real.
he's played great football the last 2 games.
It's real.
Hey, can I get half credit for my Jameis will lead the team in passing? Do I get half credit for
Cats
that?
Cats
Why
is
would you
putting in
only
their
get half?
bids. I need a piece
Well,
of
he's
that
been
sack.
saying DTR is going to play the whole year.
'Cause I didn't have both on the table. I only put one on the table. I
You
didn't.
said DTR?
no.
no, he texted me the morning we had to do bowl
Right,
predictions.
right.
True story. I'm going to peel back all
Yeah,
the
peel
curtains.
back the onion.
Jason texted me that morning and said, I have a bold prediction, but I don't have the balls to put it on the show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
unlike
And
you.
he's texted me. No. And he texted me and said, Jameis will lead the Browns in passing yards this year. And I said,
Oh.
haha, okay.
Yeah.
What's your real one? And then he sent us the real one, which I forget what the real
I
one was.
meant it, but I just didn't
Wait,
have
by
the
the way-
what point was this?
Before the season.
before the season.
Oh, okay. Well, then
By
you
the way,
get
I
credit
would
for
have
that.
considered that way more realistic than Cedric Tillman finishing second in receiving yards at the beginning of the season, because Deshaun Watson can't stay healthy and got hurt again.
No, I wanted to go with that, but I didn't.
should've.
I went with Mark.
very
Anderson.
un-
Hey,
unlike you.
I
listen.
know. It really,
And-
I was a coward.
And by the way, let's keep it. I think we downplaying this a little bit. The man just threw for 334, and we hadn't seen 160. We had all kind of charts and graphs and all kind of stuff up.
3 years here, Deshaun never got it.
We
Yeah,
we
never.
see.
I just saw a stat on Twitter, and then we're going to do a read and talk about the offensive line, giving them more time. In 5 of the last 6 starts, Browns quarterbacks not named Deshaun Watson they've thrown for 300 yards.
That's insane.
The
Regular
one
season
out of
games.
the 6, regular season.
Yeah.
The 1 out of 6 that wasn't was Jeff Driscoll in Week 18.
Right.
Against the Bengals.
That
doesn't
is the
count.
biggest
Yeah.
indictment for why this thing was so sideways.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
300-yard games now are like 350-yard games.
Four in a row for Flacco, and then the Driscoll one, and then obviously the playoff game. So that's not included in regular
Regular
season.
season
And then
games.
the
Yet
first
somebody
round games.
in analytics or ownership insists that number 4 was the best guy.
Well, I don't know that we need to blame analytics.
I think they came down.
Well,
from
I
the
said
mountain.
analytics because
Yeah.
I'm kind
Okay,
of pointing a
dollars
finger.
and cents, not analytics.
No, dollars. My analytics play is I'm not sure Paul DePodesta isn't screaming to the owner, who's then screaming to the head coach, this is your guy. I'm telling you, we need a bigger sample size.
I mean,
I don't know. We'll never know, so everybody gets the
If
blame.
anything, I would say it was anti-analytics to play Deshaun Watson, because analytics takes the emotions out of it.
And you know what's so crazy?
yeah, but they're also looking at the past numbers. They put up.
And Jimmy, this is the way it is. Jimmy's going to look at it and say, well, look, at least they're throwing the football. This is what I always wanted. He gonna look at that 334. Now he might be mad he got to write that
talked about
check.
Nick Chubb yet. I
Yeah.
know you want to do a read, but does anybody have anything definitive to say about Nick other than it still looks like he's clearly
No,
rounding
I
back?
thought
I thought he better.
He's
I thought he was
coming.
better.
He's
I thought he was
coming.
better.
I think he's not far off too.
He looked better. He had that one nice run, that 15-yarder.
He had a run early on where Zach Jackson and I were sitting next to each other, and Zach said, "That's old
Yep.
Nick," because
that's
there
what
was
it looks
nothing
like.
there.
Right.
There was nothing there, and he got like 7 or 8 out of it.
Yes, but he can't do it all the time.
Right.
yet.
And I will
But
say,
by the end of the year,
He's
he's going to be
rounding
close.
into
Right?
form.
and trust and believe this. Like when you see the way that they're playing with the play action and things like that, you gotta account for Nick Chubb. And the stronger he's
100%.
gonna get, now guys are gonna be even more open because you gotta respect that. And the offensive line, and I seen Joe Bitonio doing this. I seen him doing this.
Yes.
I seen him doing this eating. And I've been waiting all year to say, listen, let these dudes tee off on somebody for
Yeah.
once. Let them guys go at
Instead of
somebody.
being on the defense.